Okay, Burial Ground, The Knights of Terror. Wow. I was going off on Dario Argento a little bit during the introduction here. One of the many things that I do have to thank him for is sort of popularizing zombies. If not for Dario Argento, I don't think we would have got George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, and we certainly wouldn't have got the Dario Argento cut of Dawn of the Dead, which was so popular that it spawned this subgenre of Italian exploitation films. Much the way when there was a couple of, successful Clint Eastwood westerns, they would then, make a bunch of cheap Italian spaghetti westerns, as they were called, knockoffs. This is sort of the zombie version of that. It's not exactly like the zombie movies you're going to see made in the United States, but they're stealing a lot from that. They're just adding a lot more sleaze and that really horrible pastiche of bad dubbing, which we had in not one but two of these movies to contend with. Rick, I'm sorry, but it's time. What did you think of Burial Grounds?
It's a strange thing when very early in the movie you want everyone involved dead. you really don't want anyone to make it. And at the end of this movie, you get your wish. Mm-hmm. No one survives. And you're still not satisfied. It needed more. It was awful. And there was moments in the film that I kept knowing, I knew that I was in for a bad time. I knew I wasn't going to enjoy this. Right at the beginning, with the unexplained professor doing research on the crypts or something.
You got like a Klondike beard. Yeah.
And when he successfully casts this spell, a spell? It's like that's kind of a combination of zombie and fantasy, but whatever, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have to. And then he's saying, "No, I'm your friend," as they tear him to shreds.
Yes.
I just went. I said, "This is terrible. This is going to end. This is not going anywhere that I liked to see this film go."
Yeah. So I got this in a package with I think 3 other zombie movies. It came in a little group package of zombie flicks, and similar to you, I'd be about 5 or 10 minutes into this, and I'm like, okay, this is not going to be good. Then I flip it over and I say, okay, it's 85 minutes long. What's the thing in this movie? Though it's going to be this one scene that's going to present itself that's deemed it worthy of its cult significance. Kept on waiting for that scene, right? I kept on waiting for that scene.
It never came.
It didn't.
It never came. There were so many. That's the thing that was so it's okay. You knew very quickly. It's like, okay, you've just got a bunch of obnoxious hedonists who've showed up, and they're going to get punished by the living dead. It's like, so you don't have to think too hard about this film, but there's just, and it's partially like the bad dubbing as well, because you get that feeling that, man, whoever they paid to do this translation, or like, how did they come up with some of these lines? It's like, there was one exchange. Well, I've got all these exchanges that I ended up having to just throw away because there was too many of them to deal with. But it was, and I didn't keep a list of the characters' names because ultimately they're
not important. Matter. They're not important.
But a guy and a girl are exchanging this conversation. I hope we're going to leave the dead alone. I had a terrible dream last night. Janice, calm down and let's go outside. Okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
You know what I respect there? The writing. Now, again, something is being lost in the translation, but there's no love being put into this at all. They're not trying.
No, they're not trying to, tell a story even. It's just, and moving on. Let's get to the death.
We need to have boobs. We need to have slow zombies with their weird still face masks. It's one of the differences you'll see in a lot of the Italian zombie movies. The faces seem to be static. They're all like just still masks, whereas they're a little bit more lively.
Well, that was another thing that was annoying me early on when the zombies started showing up. Because I'm going, okay, there's black mesh covering their mouths. It's like they're wearing a mask that's a full face mask. And I'm going, how frightening can a monster be that actually doesn't have a mouth?
Yeah.
It's like, now, later on, see, and there was another point where I thought that I was going, this obviously doesn't have a big budget. And they did a zombie kill where they didn't show anything. And I went, oh, they've got no budget for like headshots, apparently. And then later on in the film, they started, crushing zombie heads. And I went, oh, well, okay, fair enough. They did have a budget.
They would do that, but you could tell that these were things shot separately. You'd see the guy firing the weapon, and then it would cut to an extreme close-up of a squib going off in the gut of one of the zombies. It looked in a different room entirely sometimes.
Yeah, it wasn't very effective.
It felt slapped together. And honestly, I think the thing that gives the film its reputation is the incest angle. You're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Michael, or the freaky eyeball kid, as he became known.
Of course, they couldn't get a little kid to play such a role, so he's just played by an actor who was, I don't know if he's a dwarf or what the significance of. He's just a small guy, and he doesn't really look like a kid. He doesn't really look like an adult. He's creepy before he's even supposed to be creepy. But
I hated him. Like from the very first time he appeared on the screen, I went, oh, that's just wrong.
Something about him screams danger.
It is like it's not. This kid is, and frankly though, it was perfect for the angle they went with that character in the in the film. It's that the attached to his mother, jealous of the the sexy boyfriend that she had, and continuing to want to breastfeed at, I don't know, how old was he, 9, 10, something like that?
I don't know what they were going for, but yeah.
It was just, like, it was one of those, oh no, ooh.
They're really going there. He's really going to put his hand in his mom's gear. Oh, dear God. Okay, yeah, we were talking about Michael and his over-interest in his mother.
Yeah, it was just creepy. It was an additional little thing that just made there was no way to be sympathetic for any of these people. That's why it was satisfying to see them all dead at the end. It's like you needed them. There was not a redeemable character in the whole movie.
But I wasn't horrified by their fate either. They didn't deserve their fate. They weren't being killed because they had personally done something wrong. They were just the nearest people in the neighborhood. The fact that they happened to be these shallow, idiots, was just a bonus, really, I guess.
But the thing is that you can say that like any Friday the 13th movie, that like the kids that end up getting butchered don't necessarily deserve, that it's like, yeah, they're sex crazy. They get punished because, like, that's the underlying theme.
But if you're the sixth group to go to that same campground and get killed for acting like a bunch of buffoons, I think you should take personal responsibility, partial responsibility for that.
At least it was our choice to spend our weekend here. It's like,
we thought it would be fun. Yeah, no.
But something else that bothered me about this one is that there's the zombie genre has different certain filmmakers do the slow zombies or the fast zombies. Like, fair enough. Like, that's each approach has its strengths and weaknesses. The tool using zombies, that was new. I can't say that I've seen that before. And throwing spikes to pin people's hands to walls.
Yeah. See, this is going to a different sort of whole series of zombie movies, where they're like they're zombies of like old masons, and they're good with tools and instruments, or they're zombie knights type of deal. Like they still have high combat skills. That sort of was less popular. Sort of the Romero sort of mindless gonna eat you zombies kind of took over the popular space of this. It didn't particularly bother me that they used tools and weapons in this. It did bother me that it seemed that their victims were willing participants in it. The guy will empty his gun. He'll slowly, fire bullet after bullet into the zombies. Well, that's nothing. I guess I'll just lie down. and then they'll tear my guts out of me. Like, I didn't see any fight. The woman you're talking about with the tools, she gets like a spike thrown through her hand and it pins her to the wall. And then they slowly bring this huge scythe up to take off her head. And all she has to do to avoid being beheaded is move her head back a few inches. It seems like she obliges them. You know, like,
I'm just going to wait here as you slowly decapitate me.
yeah, according to the script, this is where I get my head cut off. So I am not going to fight that.
But, it's, and things like, they used a battering ram to get through the door. It's power tools. It was just, it seemed strange. Again, I haven't seen that particular subgenre of zombie movie before, so it just felt a little bit, it wasn't in my experience.
Well,
So
I
it
don't
felt
advise
odd.
you to explore the Italian zombie films. Like, arguably, like, this is considered one of the better of them. I think arguably the big ones would be like House by the Cemetery and Zombie, which is actually a sequel to the Argento cut of Dawn of the Dead. And that's mainly famous because a shark and a zombie have a fight in it.
That sounds awesome.
Yes, well, another day. But for the most part, they are like this or worse. I would say this is a fairly typical entry into that sort of spaghetti zombie subgenre, and I'm not a fan at all.
Well, and something that seemed strangely ironic or just annoying maybe was one of the characters during the height of the zombie attack. They're talking about going to the armory to get, and I went, oh, okay, good call, except this isn't a castle. They're in like an Italian villa, which is an odd thing to have an armory in, but okay, I'll buy it. And then the guy comes back and he's got a single knife that never gets used.
Nope.
And I went, where's the Morning Stars? Where's the maces? What kind of an armory were you talking about?
What else was in the armory? Your nail file? Like,
Well, and then to bring a knife back and
not use it.
And then not even use it. I just thought, oh, that's just...
If there's any magic to this movie, it's that 85 minutes could seem this long. I really, really had a hard time. And when I saw you pick the list, I was like, that's an interesting title. We can have a lot to say about that. When I saw Burial Ground, I'm like, sorry, Rick. Sorry, buddy.
No,
I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah, there's not much more to talk about. It's just... Yeah.
Agreed.